Here's my guide to mushrooms. How to cook, clean, and preserve. This is one of my favorite mushrooms, the matsutake. Weighs in at approximately $50 a pound. They're really expensive. I just went foraging with my buddy, Chef Shota. He's an amazing chef from Top Chef, and he also happens to be an amazing mushroom forager. We just went foraging up in the Pacific Northwest for some matsutakes and some white chanterelles, and today I'm gonna show you how to make a really dank sauce to go on a steak with it, and also a conserva, and then run you how to clean them. So the mushrooms that we found were the matsutake and a white chanterelle, both very abundant in the Pacific Northwest here in Seattle. So I'm just gonna run you through on how to clean them first. To clean them, you're gonna need a brush, a soft bristle brush. If you don't have that, you can use a paper towel. If you wanna do a damp paper towel, go for it. Just try not to get these mushrooms too wet because they get waterlogged. We wanna keep them as dry as possible. So what I do is very straightforward. Run the brush lightly all along the shaft and the cap. Just like that. I try as much as possible to get in between the fins and the nooks and crannies. For the white chanterelles, you can also split those in half because there could be bugs possibly in the stalk of the mushroom. I also use my knife for the bottom of the mushrooms where it's very dirty. I just take that right off, get all that dirt off, all the pine needles off, and then we're going to set them aside on a sheet tray with a paper towel. All right, after a long process, the mushrooms are clean. This can be a very long process, so use patience in this part. Now, in a sauce pot, we're gonna melt all of our butter for the first thing we're making, which is gonna be the sauce. We're gonna make a béarnaise, a type of béarnaise. This is not technically a béarnaise. This is not like an authentic béarnaise. I'm gonna add in some aromatics, thyme, sage, rosemary. Then I'm gonna chop up my mushrooms. I'm doing the matsutakes and the chanterelles, toss that into the butter, and then bring that up to a boil. Then we're gonna strain that off so we have our beautiful matsutake mushroom butter and then our cooked off matsutakes and chanterelles that we save for later. Now to make the béarnaise, we take a pot with simmering water, put down the heat, and then we get a bowl that can fit on top of that pot. In that bowl, I toss in the egg yolks, followed by chive powder. If you don't have chive powder, you can use chives or scallions, whatever. And then a touch of lemon juice. Add in a touch of water, and then we just start whisking that on top of that pot of simmering water. You can fluctuate in between having it on the pot and off the pot. If it gets too hot, the eggs can scramble and it's not gonna be a nice silky smooth sauce. You see how it's starting to get frothy, foamy, a little thicker? At this point, I'm gonna start adding in the butter. We're going to start drizzling in our melted butter slowly at a time, just like you would with a mayo or an aioli, while whisking constantly. Once that's to this consistency right here, we'll just add in salt, pepper, lemon juice to taste. And there we go, we've got a beautiful looking hollandaise or béarnaise. Same thing. And then we can just hold it somewhere hot. In restaurants, what we'll do is we'll take these 6 pans with a little bit of warm water, put it somewhere warm, and then put it in there. Typically, béarnaise is with a dish called steak frites. It's just steak, french fries, and you have your béarnaise sauce, which is just like a hollandaise with shallot and tarragon and all this stuff. So a play on this is just gonna be our crispy mushrooms with the sauce steak. So I'm cooking off the steak the same way I cook off all my steaks in every video. Fat side down first, season it with salt all around, and then we cook it on both sides until thoroughly cooked to our liking. I just toss in the mushrooms into the same pan and let it cook in that beef fat so I can crisp them up, just like our frites would be in a steak frite dish. Then once they're done, we just toss them all aside, and that's all gonna go into a taco, so I just decided to make some tortillas from scratch. Well, technically not from scratch. I used Macienda. It's just like an instant masa harina mix, or just use store-bought tortillas if you want, or don't use tortillas at all. I have videos on these tortillas if you do want to learn how to make them from scratch. And then I just built my taco with the sauce on the bottom, the mushrooms, and then the steak, and then I had a delicious taco. Use this sauce to put on anything. You can even just put it straight on top of the steak and eat it as is. On to the next one. Okay, so now onto the mushroom conserve or conserva. This is basically a preserve. It's like a pickle, but not quite, because it's more oily than a pickle. If you use this method, you can hold these mushrooms in your fridge for a long time. When I worked in restaurants, I've seen some in our walk-in fridge for like a year. So it can hold good if you take care of it. You hear that? These are very dense. That's the beauty of like freshly picked mushrooms like this. It's just so much nicer. It has like a nice not a bite. I guess you would say a bite. It has like a nice bite to it. First off, I'm going to char the out of these mushrooms on the pan because my buddy Chef Shota says by doing this whole dry cooking thing with the mushrooms, it's condensing all that flavor. So no oil, nothing. Straight onto a hot pan, char the out of it. And then we're gonna put in a separate pot all the spices that you see here. It'll be in the ingredients down below. And then we toss in the mushrooms. We add in our oil and we let that come up to a simmer. And we just cook off those mushrooms until they're nice and crispy GBD. And then we'll add in our rice wine vinegar. I'm gonna have all the ratios down below. Salt to taste, add vinegar to taste, use your eyeballs. You can use distilled vinegar if you want. I prefer rice wine vinegar because it's just a little sweeter. It's not as strong as distilled. This is my go-to for pickling liquid. Whenever I pickle things, it's always rice wine vinegars. I guess a little shout out to this brand. This is the brand that I always use. I always have one of these bottles on deck. It's so f***ing good. And then you can just put it in the fridge in a non-reactive container, let it cool completely. If you want, you could put it into a jar it and leave it on the dry storage. I would just prefer to put it into the fridge. You can also do this with pretty much any type of mushroom. It doesn't have to be these $50 a pound mushrooms. I prefer to do seasonal mushrooms because it's a good way to save them. It's a good way to save your shrooms and have them at the end of the year or something like that. And that's it. Mushroom conserva, done.